After the woman he always idealized, Liana, moved in pregnant, my husband Daniel transformed into a domestic paragon, rushing straight home from work without delay. My colleagues and neighbors envied me, believing I had married a wonderful man, but all I could do was offer a silent, bitter smile, because he rushed home not for me, but to care for Liana, who was pregnant. I had cried and made scenes, but he would just say, "Why can't you understand my dilemma? I just want to make up for past regrets." Unable to argue further, I left the house heartbroken. Just then, a figure blocked my path. Sophia, long time no see. I looked up in disbelief, seeing the one who left a lasting mark on my heart. Leo, whom I had secretly admired for years, looking disheveled and leaning on crutches, yet his eyes were still gentle and soft as he looked at me. My eyes instantly welled up with tears. In that moment, I suddenly understood my husband. I couldn't help but grasp the man's hand and said, "Come home with me. I'll take care of you." I opened the door to our apartment on Elm Street and called inside, "Hurry in, don't let the cold air stream in. Liana can't stand the cold. Also, Liana has severe morning sickness, so her diet must be carefully managed. I need to make her special meals for pregnant women, and you shouldn't be eating those." Daniel, wearing an apron, stood frozen in place. I had no time to notice him. Carefully helping Leo, I said, "Be careful. I'll replace this door tomorrow. The threshold is too high." Leo didn't move. He sighed deeply and said, "Sophia, I appreciate your kindness, but it wouldn't be right for me to live in your house. I can manage on my own." He didn't finish his sentence before his left leg began to tremble slightly. I quickly helped him lean on me, my heart aching as I said, "How can you manage by yourself? With your leg in this state, how can I not worry?" Leo remained stubbornly at the doorway, refusing to enter. He was so careful not to move, a far cry from the proud, confident man he used to be. Seeing him like this, I felt an unbearable pain. I looked up, following his gaze, and Daniel spoke in a grave tone. "You want to let a man live in our house? Did you even ask for my opinion?" Leo's leg couldn't support him, and he subtly leaned on me again. My heart clenched, and I retorted angrily, "What's wrong with letting him stay? He's disabled. What could he possibly do? He's already in this condition. Don't you have any sympathy?" Daniel scoffed. "What do a disabled person's problems have to do with me? If others found out that my wife brought a man home, publicly humiliating me, wouldn't I be laughed out of town? No, I don't agree." I was about to retort. Just then, a woman's weak, delicate voice called out from inside, "Daniel, where did you go? I feel awful. Please come quickly." I felt a sense of relief and retorted sarcastically, "If others found out that my husband brought a pregnant woman home, I wonder if he'd be completely shamed." Daniel glared at me. "How dare you? How dare you slander Liana?" I retorted without hesitation, "Why wouldn't I dare?" The woman inside began to sob softly. Daniel panicked, gritting his teeth as he said, "Don't disturb Liana." With that, he rushed towards the inner room. I knew he was backing down and agreeing to my terms for Liana's sake. I helped Leo walk inside. His legs had long since given out. Once inside, I quickly helped him sit on the sofa. He still whispered, "Sophia, I feel like I really shouldn't have intruded on your life. Sophia, I only meant to glance at you from afar, but it's all my fault. I think it's better if I don't drag you into this." A scoff came from the kitchen. "If you know you're interfering with someone's marriage, why are you being so hypocritical?" I didn't mind. Daniel helped Leo settle his crutches and said gently, "Don't mind him. He's always like that. Just settle in and relax." I carried Leo's things directly into the guest bedroom. Daniel snapped, "Stop. Are you actually going to let another man live with you? Letting him into the house was my biggest concession. Are you going to push your luck? Absolutely not. I didn't stop, continuing to pull the luggage through the doorway. Daniel, without even rinsing the soap suds from his hands, rushed over, grabbed my hand, and demanded, "Are you insane?" I pulled my hand away, questioning him. Liana feels unwell and can only sleep soundly in a king-size bed. I've already given up the master bedroom. Didn't you say I could use the guest bedroom however I pleased? When we first got married, neither of us cared much about houses, but we still hoped to have our life together as a couple after marriage, so we bought a small apartment. There were only 2 rooms. The master bedroom had been taken over by Liana with half-hearted tears and annoyance. My things placed inside were also unwelcome. Liana found them too much, suffocating. So I, and along with all my belongings, were forced to move into the guest bedroom. Daniel froze for a moment, seemingly recalling that incident. His tone softened a bit, but he still frowned as he spoke. "This isn't about doing whatever you want." I asked, puzzled. "Then what is it about? Leo is already mobility impaired and his legs are still recovering. Where else can he sleep if not this bedroom?"
Daniel's temper flared again, his face flushed crimson. I finally started to understand. Weren't those my lines from before? I sighed, realizing we needed to talk this through properly. "Daniel, I was indeed wrong." Daniel also softened his stance. "Good that you understand." Looking into his eyes, I said sincerely, I finally understand how you feel inside. Lena is the woman you always idealized, and now that you see her suffer, your heart aches. I felt the same way today when I saw Leo. I don't think I can just leave him to fend for himself either. How about this? You take care of Lena, and I'll take care of Leo. We can get along. You fulfill your past regrets, and I fulfill my past self. It's a win-win for both of us. Daniel, however, blurted out, "Absurd. That's absolutely ridiculous." I asked, puzzled, "Isn't this perfect? Besides, you were the one who let Lena move in first, so if anyone's being absurd, you started it." Daniel froze in place, unable to utter a word for a long time, yet his face was still flushed red, apparently still unable to grasp it. Lena made a commotion again from the master bedroom. "Daniel, come quickly!" Daniel didn't rush in immediately this time, unlike before. He stood still, quietly, observing me. "Sophia, are you using this as a way to blame me?" Lena's voice inside grew louder, and I had no time to argue with him, pushing him along. "What blame? Just go in already. Lena is pregnant, and if something happens to her, it wouldn't be good." Daniel finally left, half reluctantly. I also breathed a sigh of relief and quickly sped up my tidying. Leo is sensitive. I need to go be with him quickly. The next morning, as I carried the freshly made breakfast out of the kitchen, I ran into Daniel, who was just stepping out of the master bedroom. He stammered an explanation. "Lena didn't sleep well last night, so I stayed up for the latter half of the night." I looked at him, surprised. Wasn't this his routine lately? Why was he suddenly explaining it to me? I nodded indifferently, about to walk past him. Just as I lifted my foot, I heard Daniel's delighted voice. "Sophia, I knew it. You still care about me the most. These savory breakfast pastries are my favorite." I slapped his hand away. "What are you doing? Doesn't Lena get terribly sick from the smell of meat? These are specifically for Leo." With that, I turned and walked toward the living room without hesitation. I love to eat meat, but ever since Lena moved in, I had been deprived of the right to eat meat at home. If I ate spicy barbecue ribs outside and had a slight scent of it on me, she would make a huge fuss. Lena was like she had a tracker, always able to smell meat on me. She wouldn't yell at me, but she'd immediately cover her nose and dramatically go to the bathroom, running the water loudly. But later, I always saw her buying savory snacks online. Daniel's only response was, "She's pregnant. Why are you arguing with her?" I shook my head, clearing those unpleasant memories. I walked to the living room and saw Leo, who had been happily greeting me, immediately revert to his cautious demeanor. I turned around, only then realizing Daniel had been following me the whole time. "Sophia, you have really gone through a lot. I'm so useless. I wish my legs weren't injured. You stayed up all night watching over me, and now you're making me breakfast? I really... Seeing his self-reproaching expression, I hurried forward to comfort him. Not at all. I'm doing this willingly. And your legs, it was all to save that child. Because of you, he survived being hit by traffic. I wanted to say more, but Daniel, who was behind me, exploded. Didn't we agree I'd sleep in the living room and give you the home office? Sophia, you actually stayed up all night watching over him in the guest bedroom? As his words fell, I noticed Leo lowering his head. Anger immediately surged within me. Daniel, his leg is unwell. Of course I have to watch over him. Isn't that the same principle as you watching over Lena? Daniel froze, instinctively retorting, That's different. What's different about it? I interrupted. I won't interfere with your concern for Lena, and you shouldn't interfere with my concern for Leo. At my words, Daniel was instantly silenced. He stood rooted to the spot, lost in thought. I had no time to mind him, carrying the plate to Leo. Leo, this is from your favorite place, the Morning Bakery. I specifically bought green onions, ginger, garlic, and vinegar to go with it. IT is going to be delicious. Leo finally broke into a smile and said, Thank you, Sophia. Daniel, however, snatched it away. Sophia? What's this Sophia business? How dare you eat something my wife bought? How dare you call my wife Sophia? She has a name. Her name is Sophia. Leo murmured, But she is my Sophia. I looked at Daniel, speechless. What's wrong with you? Lena called out again from inside. Daniel! Daniel once again remained unmoved, his eyes fixed on me, looking like he wouldn't back down easily. Just as the tension escalated, Lena walked out, her eyes red. Daniel, didn't you hear me? Or do you also think I'm a burden? Maybe I should just leave then. I'm only holding you back by being here. If it was before, I would have definitely rolled my eyes at Lena's tear-eyed appearance, but now I actually felt a ping of pity for her. Daniel quickly denied it. Lena, how could you be a burden? I just didn't hear you. Wait here. I'll make you breakfast right away. Daniel scurried off to the kitchen. Watching him leave for Lena, I breathed a sigh of relief, glad that Lena had appeared at just the right time.
After breakfast, I faced a new problem. I had to go to work, but I was worried about leaving Leo alone at home with them. Leo seemed to sense my concern and understandingly said, Sophia, if you have work, you should go attend to it quickly. I haven't always had someone by my side, and you know my nature. I can handle basic things on my own. I glanced at the kitchen. Daniel came out just then, scoffing. What do you take me for? Do you think I'm some villain who would harm a disabled person? I gave an awkward laugh. How could I doubt my own husband's character? Although he had been emotionally unstable lately, he was undeniably a good person. I married him precisely because he was a genuinely good man. In life, he respected his parents, was loyal to his friends, and before Lena came, we had a very happy life together. Professionally, he was consistently rated as the most popular teacher at Oakwood High. He also frequently donated to charities and volunteered. I really shouldn't have doubted him. After realizing this, I could finally go to work with peace of mind. At the office, I was still a little worried. Colleagues noticed my distraction, some even asking if I was all right. Finally, counting down the seconds until quitting time, I rushed straight home. The moment I stepped through the door, I saw Leo fall into the floor, looking disheveled and miserable. I quickly ran over to check on him. Leo, however, struggled to say, Sophia, I'm fine. Daniel sneered, Of course he's fine. He's just faking it. Sophia, don't be fooled by his act. Leo lowered his head, pressed his lips together, and his eyes reddened. Sophia, I truly am a burden. I only cause annoyance in this house. Please just let me leave. That word burden sounded familiar, but I didn't have time to recall where I'd heard it before. Daniel actually agreed immediately. I think he's right. He's too much trouble here. Sophia, let him go. Rage instantly flared within me, and I was about to argue, but then my peripheral vision caught Leo's reddened eyes. Almost instantly, I calmed myself. In fact, thinking about it carefully, my marriage with Daniel was already a marriage in name only. Perhaps it was better if we separated. Leo had injured legs. If he stayed in this house, I dared not imagine what other harm he might suffer when I wasn't around.
Leaving was indeed the best option. I nodded and said, "All right then." Daniel said happily, "Sophia, it's good that you've come to your senses." I looked at him seriously and said, "Our current situation truly demands that we go our separate ways. Daniel, let's get a divorce." Daniel said disbelievingly, "Sophia, what are you saying? Are you going to divorce me for a man with crippled legs?" I sneered back, "Daniel, do you think we still resemble a normal couple in this state? It's quite fitting now. You have someone you want to care for, and I have someone I want to look after, so why don't we just separate?" Daniel couldn't find a reason to argue, merely repeating, "No, that won't do. How can we separate? How can we separate?" The last time I heard that question was when we decided to break up. After college graduation, our paths diverged. Both of us knew perfectly well that we were about to go our separate ways. Neither of us wanted to be the one to say it. We both just wanted to prolong it. But eventually, we couldn't drag it out anymore. That day, we both drank a lot. Holding hands, he walked me down by the dorms, and I finally spoke. "Daniel, let's break up." Despite the scorching midsummer heat, the air around us felt like the bitter cold of winter. He remained silent, not speaking, just holding my hand tightly. He kept repeating, "How can we separate?" Daniel's voice pulled me back to reality. How many difficulties did we overcome to reach this point? First, there was over a year of long distance. Later, I worked hard and finally got transferred to the main office, which allowed us to reunite. But only today did I understand. Perhaps we were just used to having each other around. The sudden appearance of the woman he always idealized could sever this relationship so easily. I said, my voice filled with pain, "There's no need to drag this out. Lena needs you more." Lena appeared at that opportune moment. "Daniel, what's wrong? Are you arguing because of me again? I should have—" Daniel interrupted Lena before she could finish her sentence. "All right, Lena is indeed far along now. I'll send her to Cedar Ridge Hospital and you won't have to worry about her affecting our life anymore." Lena was also stunned. "Daniel, what do you mean? Are you going to kick me out too? Did she complain about me to you, saying I'm too much trouble? But now, besides you, I have no one else to rely on." No matter how Lena pulled at him, he didn't turn around. It was the first time he had deliberately avoided Lena's gaze. I even felt a little bad. "But didn't you say she's pregnant and needs constant care? Would you really leave her alone at the hospital all by herself? Actually, Lena is quite pitiful." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "Sophia, are you trying to push your husband onto another woman?" I didn't understand why Daniel was asking that. Even if I didn't push him, wasn't he already eagerly attending to Lena? Even if he was willing to send Lena away for my sake at this moment, it might just be a temporary tactic. I couldn't predict if he would change his mind again in the future, swayed by Lena's tears, or if something happened to Lena, would he blame today's decision? I dared not gamble, nor did I want to. I looked at Daniel seriously and said, "Daniel, I've made my mind. Let's separate." Daniel sneered, yet he still held my hand tightly. "Sophia, think this through. If you truly decide to separate, don't expect me to be waiting here if you change your mind." Daniel remained silent for a long time. Leo, however, took my arm and also tried to persuade me. "Sophia, please don't act impulsively because of me. Divorce is no small matter. Don't do it because of me." I replied, "It's not." Daniel simultaneously interjected, "This is between my wife and I. What does it have to do with you? Don't stand there stammering, I... Leo immediately swallowed the words he was about to say. Daniel wasn't finished. "If it weren't for you, how would Sophia and I have ended up like this?" I couldn't help but glare at Daniel. I complained silently to myself. How could he not remember the woman he always idealized, Lena, now?
Lena tugged at him, her voice trembling as she said, "Daniel, don't be like this. I'm scared. My stomach, the baby inside is uncomfortable too. What should we do?" He didn't seem to notice her plea. Turning to me, he became calm. "Sophia, we really should cool off for a while. We shouldn't make any rash decisions. During this time, I'll send Lena to the hospital. I myself will go stay at the campus apartment. Once we both calm down, we can talk properly." Lena's face fell. "Daniel,
Isn't it a waste of money for me to go to the hospital now? Besides, there are so many people at the hospital. How will I get used to staying there? I'll be so scared alone at night. These were all scenarios I had anticipated before. When faced with her delicate displays of vulnerability, I mostly felt disdain. Daniel, on the other hand, always fell for her act. Whenever she softened, he'd surrender immediately. They'd be all sweetness and light, and I'd be the one who ended up unlucky. But this time was different. I felt like an outsider, and now that I didn't care about their relationship, I felt much more relaxed. Daniel also sank into thought. I couldn't help but chuckle aloud. I had just asked him if he could bear to leave Lena alone at the hospital. Now the problem had arrived. Daniel glanced at me, then at Lena, and finally said, "Lena, I'll hire medical staff to take care of you specially, and I'll visit you often." Lena's face truly went pale this time. She tried to ask, "Daniel, are you really being so heartless? You know I can't be without you." I couldn't watch anymore and scoffed. "Daniel, Lena is so pitiful. I think you should just go stay with her anyway. Afterwards, you'll have a legitimate reason to—" Daniel snapped. "How can I stay with another woman? Sophia, we're not divorced yet. Until we're divorced, I expect us both to refrain from any inappropriate behavior." This time, I genuinely laughed, whispering, "You and Lena have done plenty of inappropriate things, and you haven't just been staying with her for one night. Why are you suddenly so scrupulous now that we're getting a divorce?" Daniel paused for a moment before saying, "I'll be more careful in the future." Daniel didn't have many belongings, and he had packed Lena's things very well too. They quickly finished packing. Just before leaving, Daniel said to me, "The master bedroom has been cleaned up. Don't crowd in with that person. He is a man after all." One day, without Daniel and Lena in the house, Leo's spirits improved greatly. My worries were gone. I ate well and slept well. I was no longer distracted at work. My colleagues all said I looked like I had come back to life. I also realized that when Daniel was home, Leo was restricted everywhere, forbidden from entering certain areas or touching things. Now that they were gone, Leo could even make dinner and wait for me. Chicken and mushroom stew, braised beef, garlic butter shrimp. It had been so long since I had seen so many meat dishes. Why should I have to walk on eggshells in my own house? After eating such flavorful and appealing dishes, I almost regretted not getting away from those two sooner. Now things are truly good. Just as I was marveling at how good life was, the lock turned. Daniel walked in carrying a bag of food. "I know you couldn't cook. He's a disabled man, and you have to take care of him, so you definitely can't rely on him. Sophia, look, I bought a lot of groceries, all your favorites." Daniel demonstratively swung the bag in his hand. He walked into the kitchen to plate the food, only to find Leo already washing dishes. It was then he stammered, "You've already eaten. Ordered takeout, didn't you? That's so unhealthy. How can you do that? Let me." He picked up the savory snacks from the edge of the kitchen counter and threw them aside in disgust. I scoffed. "Leo and I didn't buy that. Those were bought by your Lena, who makes a huge scene and turns everything upside down at the slightest scent of meat. She loves these. She's bought them several times. You should hurry and take them to her at the hospital. What if she craves them?" Daniel said, dumbfounded, "How is that possible? How could these be Lena's?" I simply pulled out the packaging box. The name on it was clear as day. Daniel still habitually defended Lena. "She's pregnant. Maybe she just had an occasional craving." I retorted sarcastically, "Right, she certainly enjoys eating them herself. Her cravings seem to be a 3 times a day affair. By the way, don't forget to take these with you when you leave. Leo and I will be making meat dishes often from now on, so you really shouldn't come over. If she smells it and suddenly feels unwell, that wouldn't be good, would it?" Daniel didn't say anything more, putting the groceries away in the fridge. I thought he would just leave, but then he went into the guest bedroom. I stopped him and said, "How can you just walk into someone else's room? I've already organized all your things into the home office. If you need to find something, look there." Daniel said, disbelieving, "Sophia, this is our home. My things are just thrown around like trash, but another man's things get their own designated spot, is that it?" I countered, Previously, when Lena moved in, weren't my things also deemed bothersome by another woman? At that time, why didn't it occur to you that I'm also the owner of this house? Besides, we're almost divorced now and you'll have to move out eventually. So where do your things matter? Daniel completely lost his composure and grabbed my arm. Divorce, divorce. Why do you keep bringing up that word? Sophia, we're not divorced yet. I was about to argue with him, but a loud crash came from the living room. Leo seemed to have fallen to the floor. My only thought was to take care of Leo. I had no idea when Daniel had left. When I helped Leo into the bedroom, Daniel was already gone. Leo had heard Daniel and I arguing and, worried I might get hurt, had fallen down in a hurry. His leg had re-injured a bit. I wanted to take him to the hospital, but he flatly refused. I had no choice but to stay with him, watching over Leo, and only left the guest bedroom after he fell asleep. But when I came out, I saw the living room lights were on again. Walking into the living room, I saw Daniel sitting on the sofa, staring blankly. Seeing me, he asked, looking somewhat helpless,
Sophia, how did we end up like this? Daniel wasn't usually this soft-spoken. When had he ever been this vulnerable? As I approached, I smelled a strong scent of alcohol on Daniel. Daniel, why are you so drunk? Daniel didn't speak, just pulled me into a tight embrace. Sophia, I miss you so much. Sophia, let's not separate, okay? Feeling his familiar embrace, a pang of bitterness still rose within me. We had been together for so long, it was impossible to say I felt nothing about leaving him immediately. In that moment, I also couldn't help but think, actually there was still affection between us. As I was lost in my internal struggle, Daniel's phone rang, a distinct ringtone unlike anyone else's. Daniel answered the call in 0 seconds flat, blurting out the name of the person on the other end. Lena, what's wrong? Not wanting to interfere, I tried to pull away from Daniel's embrace, but he wouldn't let go for anything, until a medical staff member on the other end took the phone, saying sternly, "Your wife's condition isn't very good right now. You should come over." Only then did Daniel straighten up, giving me space to breathe and break free from his grasp. It was only then that I realized I was actually worried about Daniel being drunk, even believing he might tell me the truth in his stupor. He had been accustomed to all kinds of social gatherings with his family since childhood. I couldn't help but laugh at myself for being so naive. Even though I had made my mind up, Daniel's actions still managed to stir my emotions. Daniel said, frowning, "Sophia, Lena's condition is really not good tonight. I can't just ignore her. Don't worry, as soon as Lena's condition stabilizes, I'll return to the campus apartment. And don't keep going into that guy's room. He's not a good person. Sophia, believe me, you're still the most important person in my heart." I said, flatly, "Go quickly. Lena is waiting. What if something happens to her if you're late?" Daniel, thinking I agreed with him, hugged me emotionally and then quickly left. I watched his retreating back for a long time. He might have me in his heart, but he also has Lena. Perhaps I held some place, but Lena's was not far behind. If what he gave me was similar to what he gave others, there was no longer any reason for me to cling on. Daniel, once I leave this time, I won't ever want you back. It was time for us to have a complete understanding. The lock on this apartment should also be replaced. The next day, I woke up early contemplating how to make Daniel let go, while also preparing for Leo's follow-up appointment at the hospital. But by such a coincidence, in the hallway on the way to the follow-up at Cedar Ridge Hospital, we happened to run into Daniel carefully assisting Lena. Daniel explained, "Lena hasn't been feeling well and really couldn't be left alone, so I stayed with her all night." The nurse nearby also spoke with a smile. "Oh, you couples ran into friends, did you?
Good people's friends are indeed good people, and loving couples know other loving couples. One comes every day to accompany his pregnant wife, and the other accompanies her husband for rehabilitation. How lovely! It's truly wonderful. I should have my son see this too. Young couples should take care of each other, not just argue at home all day. How can that work? The moment her words fell, Daniel's face turned green with anger. Nurse, if you have something to do, please go ahead. Lena, however, smiled triumphantly where she couldn't see. I, on the other hand, responded with an unconcerned smile. Daniel frowned, about to say something. Leo squeezed my arm, and I quickly helped him lean on me. The nurse saw this and smiled even brighter. Look how loving this young couple is. Why are you, a grown man, acting so sheepish? Daniel's face flushed with anger, but he couldn't say anything, only leaning closer to me. I stepped back a half step. Daniel, let's find a time to sort things out. Having said that, I didn't look at his expression, intending to leave with Leo, but he spoke just as I lifted my foot. Dad and Mom said they haven't seen us in a long time and want us to come home tonight. I paused. Dad and Mom. I hadn't figured out how to explain things to them yet, but I'd have to tell them eventually, so I reluctantly agreed. That evening, I was busy with company matters while Leo was bustling about in the kitchen for me. A sudden work assignment left me dizzy with activity. I had completely forgotten about visiting Dad and Mom. It wasn't until Daniel came to knock on the door that I remembered. I quickly tidied myself. Daniel didn't rush me as he usually would. We didn't talk much on the way. Our roles seemed to have completely reversed. Daniel was now the one desperately trying to make conversation. Seeing how truly awkward he was, I took the initiative to start a conversation. How was Lena doing? Daniel, however, didn't say anything more. He turned on the car radio, clearly not planning to find any other topics for conversation. When we arrived at the house on Maple Drive, I stopped him and said, Daniel, our situation needs a resolution eventually, so why don't we... He didn't get to speak before the door opened from inside. Grandma smiled and said, You're finally here. Your Grandpa William and I have been waiting for you. Daniel's grandma was also there. I had no choice but to swallow my words. Grandpa and Dad were busy in the kitchen, while Mom and Grandma were organizing gifts in the living room. Grandma Margaret was a very kind elderly woman, but her health hadn't been good in recent years. But her mindset was very positive, and she wanted to travel more while she was still able to move around. I hadn't expected that my return would coincide with theirs. Bringing up these topics around Grandpa and Grandma seemed like it would upset them. Throughout the entire meal, I had to force a smile. Before I left, Grandma repeatedly asked me, Sophia, that rascal of ours hasn't been bothering you, has he? I don't have much time left, but I hope you two can be happy. Seeing her expectant gaze, I could only nod. Daniel seemed in good spirits, taking my hand and gazing at me with affection as he said, Sophia and I will definitely make it work between us.
It wasn't until we stepped outside that I realized Daniel's strategy. Curious, I pulled my hand away from him. You used Grandma. Daniel, however, admitted it openly. Yes, if you don't care about what we once had, are you really willing to break Grandma's heart? Seeing his audacity, I scoffed. Why should I care? If Margaret knew I spent my whole life unhappy just for her sake, that's what would truly break her heart. Just then, Lena's call came through again. I sneered. Aren't you going to answer it? She's feeling unwell again. What if there's something wrong with the baby she's carrying? You won't be able to be a father to that child. Daniel actually resisted answering and spoke to me instead. Sophia, I know I've made a mistake. I've made arrangements for Lena. She has professionals helping her. If you don't like me getting close to other women, I'll definitely be careful from now on. I won't do anything you don't like. The phone kept ringing again and again. as if it wouldn't stop until someone answered. Hearing it made me feel uneasy. "Maybe you should answer it. It might be something urgent." Daniel replied, "She's at the hospital. There are far more professionals there than me. They don't need an amateur like me." I raised an eyebrow. Daniel actually knew that everyone has their own expertise. The old Daniel would never have thought of that. When she called, he'd lose all capacity for thought, his mind fixated solely on rushing to Lena's side. Daniel tried to reach for me. The next second, another phone rang. I immediately answered. "Sophia, are you back yet?" The moment he spoke, I could tell something was off in Leo's tone. I quickly pressed him. "Leo, did you fall again? Don't worry, I'm done here. Wait for me. I'm coming right back." After hanging up, I was about to flag down a taxi, but Daniel stopped me. "Sophia, don't believe him. That's his usual trick, just to get you to come back." I pushed him away. "Why are you so critical of Leo? He's just a patient with injured legs. He's not a manipulative person. You don't get along well with him, and for now, I don't feel comfortable leaving him to live on his own. So all things considered, it just means we're not cut out for living together anymore." Daniel stood frozen in place. I finally hailed a taxi and was about to get in. Daniel stopped me again, whispering softly, "As long as you don't get a divorce, it doesn't matter even if Leo lives here." I didn't hear him clearly and shook his hand off. Daniel then shouted at the top of his lungs, "As long as you, Sophia, don't divorce me, I'm willing to live in harmony with Leo." With that single sentence, passersby frequently turned their heads, and even the taxi driver's eyes widened, staring at me. I ended up arriving home blushing. Although the words were out, Grandma was so kind to me that the divorce kept getting postponed. Leo's injuries also showed no signs of full recovery. Meanwhile, Daniel actually managed to truly leave Lena behind and came home every day. He preferred to sleep on a small bed in the home office every day rather than return to the campus apartment the school had arranged for him. Later, I eventually found out through Daniel's childhood best friend's social media post. Daniel had sought out Lena's family, then her ex-boyfriend. Lena had never truly cut ties with him. They had been in constant contact. Lena wanted to enjoy the attention from her ex-boyfriend while also receiving care from Daniel. Now that her secret was out, she ended up on bad terms with both. She came to the apartment multiple times, but Daniel explicitly rejected her. After many attempts, Lena finally gave up unwillingly. Whenever I tried to talk to Daniel about divorce, he'd play dumb and evade it. And if I tried to ask about Leo's injuries, he'd inexplicably get upset. A delicate balance was surprisingly maintained in our apartment. Eventually, I couldn't be bothered to ask anymore. During the day, someone looked out for me, offering care and concern. In the evening, someone had dinner ready. My life seemed better. The autumn leaves had begun to carpet the sidewalks of Elm Street in earnest, a blaze of orange and gold that felt both beautiful and melancholy. Inside the apartment, a strange but stable new rhythm had settled. In the mornings, Leo would be at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of tea already beside my usual seat. Daniel would emerge from the home office, rumpled from his night on the fold-out bed, and head straight for the coffee maker. We moved around each other like satellites in a carefully calibrated orbit, close but never colliding. One Saturday, I was sorting through a box of old books when I found our wedding album tucked away at the back of the hall closet. I hadn't seen it in years. I sat on the floor, the album heavy on my lap. There we were, Daniel and I, younger, our smiles not yet shadowed by regret. We looked hopeful, even brave. A knot tightened in my throat. "Remember that day?" Daniel's voice came from the doorway. He was holding 2 mugs. It rained just as we were leaving the church. My uncle's car got stuck in the mud. I managed a small smile, accepting the tea he offered. "And you ruined your suit trying to push it out." "Worth it," he said, leaning against the doorframe. He didn't come closer. These days, he was careful about my space. "You still looked at me like I'd hung the moon, even covered in mud." The memory was warm, but it felt like it belonged to 2 other people. I traced the edge of the photo. We were different then,
We were, he agreed, his voice quiet. I was an idiot. I got lost for a while, Sophia. I think I was trying to fix a ghost from my past and ended up breaking the present. It was the closest he'd come to a full apology, devoid of justifications or blame. I didn't know what to say. The silence stretched, filled with the distant sound of Leo's physical therapy exercises from the guest room, a soft, rhythmic stretching against the resistance bands. Daniel cleared his throat. Leo's appointment is on Monday, right? At the rehab center on 4th? I could drive. The forecast says rain. It was a peace offering, simple and practical. For months, he'd oscillated between icy resentment and this new, persistent helpfulness whenever Leo was involved. This felt like the latter. I was going to take a cab, I said. It's on my way to Oakwood, he insisted gently. It's no trouble. I nodded slowly. All right. Thank you, Daniel. He gave a short, satisfied nod and retreated to the kitchen, giving me back the privacy of my memories. Later that evening, as Leo and I finished the dishes, he wiped his hands on a towel and looked at me, his expression serious. He's trying, you know, really trying. I sighed, placing a plate in the rack. I know he is, but trying to be different and actually being different aren't the same thing, and it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't, he agreed. He never pushed me towards Daniel. His loyalty was a quiet, steady force that was entirely mine. But it changes what could happen next for all of you. You don't have to carry this anger forever, Sophia. It's a heavy weight. I looked at him, at the kindness in his eyes that had never asked for anything, at the strength he was slowly rebuilding in his body. What do you think I should do? He smiled, a little sadly. I think you should listen to your heart, not your hurt. And you should know that whatever you decide, I will support you. But my being here, it can't be the reason you stay, and it shouldn't be the reason you go. His words lingered in the air on Monday morning as Daniel drove us to the rehab center. The rain fell steadily, drumming a soft pattern on the roof. Leo sat in the back, looking out the window. The silence in the car was surprisingly comfortable, punctuated only by the swish of the wipers. How's your mother, Daniel? Leo asked suddenly, breaking the quiet. Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror, surprised. She's okay, worried. She calls every Sunday, asks about Sophia. She's a good woman. She always made the best lemon cake when we were kids. A flicker of a smile crossed his face. You remember that? She still does. I'll tell her you said hello. It was a tiny, civil exchange, but it felt monumental. They were acknowledging a shared past, a history that didn't involve me. I felt something inside me unclench just a little. At the center, while Leo was with his therapist, Daniel and I waited in the lounge. He fidgeted with a magazine. Sophia. He began, then stopped. He took a breath. I've been seeing a counselor at the university, just talking through some things. About my father, about Lena, and about how I handled everything so poorly with you. I looked at him, truly looked. The defensive anger that used to live in his eyes was gone, replaced by a weary honesty. Why? Because I didn't like the man I'd become, and because I want to be someone worthy of your respect again, even if that's all it ever is. Before I could respond, a nurse approached us, her face friendly. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, Leo's therapist, would like a quick word about his progress. The assumption was natural, but it hung in the air between us. Daniel didn't correct her. He just looked at me, a question in his eyes. I gave a slight, imperceptible shake of my head. Now wasn't the time. Of course, I said, standing up. Daniel followed. The therapist was optimistic. Leo's recovery was progressing well, ahead of schedule. He might be able to walk with just a cane in a few weeks, and the crutches could be retired for good not long after. It was the best news we'd had in months. On the drive home, the mood was lighter. Leo was quietly triumphant, and Daniel kept asking thoughtful questions about the next steps in his therapy. When we pulled up to the apartment, Daniel turned to Leo. "That's great news, Leo. Really. I'm glad for you." The words were stiff, but they were genuine. He met his gaze and nodded. "Thank you, Daniel, for the ride." That night, Daniel didn't immediately vanish into the home office. He lingered in the living room as I made tea. "He'll be independent soon," Daniel stated, not looking at me. "It looks that way," I said, with my back to him as I filled the kettle. "And then what?" His voice was low. I turned around, leaning against the counter. "I don't know, Daniel. What do you want then to be?" He ran his hair through his hair, a gesture of frustration I knew so well. "I want to come home, Sophia, not just to this apartment, but to you. I want to sleep in our bed again. I want to make you breakfast on Sundays and argue over what movie to watch. I want the life we were supposed to have before I threw a grenade in the middle of it." His eyes were pleading, but more than that, I want you to be happy, even if that happiness isn't with me. The honesty was disarming. It stripped away my defenses, leaving me raw. The kettle whistled, a sharp domestic sound. I turned it off, the silence rushing back in.
"I need time," I whispered, the words feeling inadequate. "I'm not that girl in the wedding album anymore, and you're not that boy." "I know," he said, "but maybe we could be different people together, better ones." From the hallway, we heard the soft tap of Leo's crutch. He was giving us privacy, retreating to his room, a reminder that this delicate ecosystem we'd built was temporary. A week later, Leo surprised me. He was in the living room, standing for a full minute without holding on to anything, a look of intense concentration on his face. Then, slowly, he took one step, then another, holding only a single crutch for balance. "Leo!" I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. He looked up, sweat beading on his forehead, and broke into a dazzling, triumphant grin. "Told you I'd get there." I rushed to him, not to help, but to hug him. He held me tightly, the crutch clattering to the floor. "I'm so proud of you," I murmured into his shoulder. Over his shoulder, I saw Daniel, standing in the doorway of the home office. He was watching us, and for the first time, I didn't see jealousy or anger on his face. I saw acceptance and a deep, profound sadness. He gave a small, acknowledging nod to Leo, and then quietly closed his door. That was the moment I knew. The balance was shifting. Leo's journey towards independence was also my journey towards a decision. The life I had been clinging to, the angry wife, the reluctant caregiver in a house of shared ghosts, was ending. A new path was clearing, but I still couldn't see where either fork led. I was standing at the threshold, just like Leo had been months ago, learning how to walk again on unsteady, unfamiliar ground. The day Leo walked to the mailbox at the end of Elm Street using only a cane was the day the pretense finally shattered. It was a crisp, sunny afternoon, and I watched from the window as he made the slow, deliberate journey back, a small bundle of letters in his hand. His face, when he came inside, was flushed not just with effort, but with a pure, uncomplicated joy I hadn't seen in him or felt in myself for a long time. "The world's a lot smaller on 2 feet," he said, grinning as he dropped the mail on the table, "and a lot bigger." That night, Daniel cooked. It was a proper meal. Herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables, garlic bread, set properly on the dining table, not eaten on laps in the living room. The 3 of us sat down. It felt formal, final. "This is nice," Leo said, breaking the tense silence. "It is," Daniel agreed. He took a sip of water and looked at me, then at Leo.
We need to talk about what happens next. The air thickened. Leo set his fork down gently. Leo's doing great, Daniel continued, his voice careful, measured. He'll be driving again soon. He can manage on his own. Which means we're out of excuses, Sophia. We have to decide what this is. He gestured around the table, encompassing the three of us. I put my own fork down, my appetite gone. You're right. I want to come home, Daniel said, the words rushing out. Fully, not as a guest in my own home office. I want us to go to counseling. I want to fix this. I've ended everything with Lena. Truly, finally. She's moved back to her family in Crestwood. It's over. I only want you. His plea was direct, stripped bare of the manipulation and guilt that had laced his words for months. It was just a man asking for his wife back. All eyes turned to Leo. He had become the silent arbiter of our strange triangle. He looked at Daniel for a long moment, then at me, his eyes soft with understanding. Sophia, you don't need to take care of me anymore. That's not a bond that should hold you. You need to choose what you want, not out of pity for him or out of duty to me, but for yourself. The kindness in his words was the final key. It unlocked the last chain of obligation I'd been clinging to. I looked at the two men. Daniel, my husband, who had broken my heart and was now kneeling in the rubble, painstakingly trying to gather the pieces, and Leo, my old friend, who had shown me what steady, selfless devotion looked like, and in doing so had reminded me of my own strength. I loved them both, but in profoundly different ways. One was a deep, complex love forged in shared history and broken promises, a love that might be salvageable but would always bear the cracks of repair. The other was a pure, anchoring love born of compassion and rediscovery, a love that felt more like a safe harbor than a journey. But a harbor isn't where you live forever. It's where you rest before you decide where to sail next. I took a deep, shaking breath. Daniel, I said, and he leaned forward, hope flaring in his eyes. I believe you're trying. I believe you're sorry, and part of me will always love you. His face began to fall, sensing the but before I said it. But you're right before. We're not those people in the wedding album anymore. Lena wasn't the cause, she was a symptom. The cause was us forgetting how to be us. And I don't know if I can ever feel safe in that us again. I don't know if I can ever look at our bed
And not remember you leaving it for her. I don't know if I can ever hear a phone ring and not wonder if it's another crisis pulling you away. Tears streamed down his face silently. He didn't interrupt. I need more than you wanting to come home, I whispered, my own voice thick. I need a home that's entirely new. And I think I need to build that by myself first. The silence that followed was heavy, but clean. The truth was out, and it hung in the air, painful but undeniable. I turned to Leo, reaching for his hand on the table. He laced his fingers through mine, a gesture of support, not possession. And you, I said, you showed me what I'd been missing. You showed me my own worth again. But you were also right. I can't use your need as a reason to stay, and my gratitude isn't a foundation for a life together. You're my dearest friend. You're my family. But I think we both need to stand on our own now. Leo brought my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles, his eyes shining. I know, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I've known for a while. I'll always be here for you, Sophia, but not in this apartment. The decision once spoken became real. In the weeks that followed, we moved with a somber, shared purpose. Daniel found a small townhouse near Oakwood High. He packed his things, truly, this time, and on his last day in the Elm Street apartment,
He stood in the empty master bedroom and cried, not to manipulate, but from genuine grief for what he had lost. "I'm so sorry, Sophia," he said, for what felt like the 100th time, but now it just sounded sad, not strategic. "I know you are," I said, and I meant it. Leo's recovery accelerated with his newfound independence. He secured a ground-floor apartment a few neighborhoods over, perfect for his continued physiotherapy. The day he left, he hugged me for a long time in the empty living room, our echoes the only furniture left. "Thank you," he murmured, "for saving me when I needed it." "Thank you," I whispered back, "for saving me right back." I sold the apartment in Elm Street. It held too many ghosts of all kinds. With the proceeds, I bought a smaller, sun-filled condo across the city, with a view of a park. It had no history. It was my own alone. The divorce papers, when Daniel and I signed them at our lawyer's office 6 months later, were a formality. The marriage had ended long before. In the moments he rushed home for Lena, in the moments I grasped Leo's hand, we signed without rancor. And when it was done, he looked at me across the table. "I hope you find your happiness, Sophia. You deserve it." "I hope you find peace, Daniel." And I meant that, too. Life moved on. Daniel threw himself into his work and, I heard through mutual friends, continued his counseling. Leo and I met for coffee every other week. Our friendship, freed from the pressure of codependency and unspoken longing, became one of my greatest treasures. We talked about work, books, his physio milestones, my new painting hobby. We were anchors in each other's lives, but not the whole ship. One spring afternoon, a year after Leo first stumbled into my path on Elm Street, I was in my new condo, hanging a painting I'd finally finished, a scene of a solitary boat on a calm, vast sea at dawn. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Sophia. It's Ben, from the art class. You left your turpentine on the shared table. I have it if you'd like to meet for a coffee and reclaim it. No pressure." I smiled. Ben was the quiet, observant architect who took the studio class after mine. We'd exchanged a few pleasantries about brush techniques. I looked around my bright, quiet, solitary space. It was a good space. It was my own. I felt no desperation, no aching void that needed filling, just a gentle, curious openness. I picked up my phone and typed back. "Hi, Ben. Coffee sounds good. I know just the place." I hit send, placed the phone down, and turned back to straighten the painting on the wall. The sunlight streamed in, warm on my skin. The story of Daniel and Lena and Leo and the woman I used to be on Elm Street was finished. Not forgotten, but folded into the tapestry of who I had become. A new chapter, written entirely in my own hand, was just beginning.